Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. I have someone on the show after a little while who's been a little busy, I think, analyzing China a bit too much. Namrata Hasija, who's going to tell us about the aggression that the Chinese are showing very, very recently, especially in the South China Sea. At least not with India at the moment, but South China Sea. My question to her is going to be very, very simple. Is China trying to normalize aggression so that it can continue with this behavior going forward? The second question that I will ask her is a little more interesting about Xi Jinping. Stay tuned so that you can get to know that. Namrata, thank you so much for joining. And so, as I asked, is Xi Jinping kind of normalizing aggression?
Actually, normalizing aggression. I know where the question is leading to, but let me just, let's spend at least 5 minutes on just talking about the recently concluded NPC session in March. I want to draw your attention there because there are a couple of things, probably we should discuss when we are discussing Xi Jinping, his actions, what he's doing inside China, and how he's, of course, dealing. With other countries. Now, I'm going to combine the 20th Party Congress and the NPC. If you look at both the sessions, which are of course important, because at the 20th Party Congress, he was elected the General Secretary again of the Communist Party of China. At this NPC, formally, of course, everyone knew the third term has already started, but formally he was elected as the President of China. Now, if you look at the speeches that he made during both sessions, I think, when you look at those speeches, there are signs that Chinese leadership is very worried about the domestic situation. Okay, because you look at the number of political education campaigns that the Chinese has started, right? And you look at the NPC session where the Politburo Standing Committee members, they have also made, their recent speeches where they have talked about cadres and they have told cadres to strictly comply by, the party discipline. And if you look at least 6 months of uh, Chinese, the data that's coming from China, especially the leadership is talking the way Politburo members are talking. They have been stressing a lot on two establishments. Okay, and under two establishments, you have to understand that these mean protecting Xi Jinping at the core of the party. Now, that has actually been made as how do I say, like as something that can be used to purge a cadre. So if you don't follow two establishment, that means if you don't listen to Xi Jinping or there is any act that you do that can be considered as disloyal to Xi Jinping, you can actually be purged from the party, right? And they have been talking about this again and again, which means domestic situation they are tense about it. There are things that are not happening the way the party wants, and there are threats to Xi Jinping's authority. So, and pointing to the inner party discontent, they have given very sharp warnings, right? Xi Jinping has also said again and again, and many Politburo Standing Committee members have also said that they have to be careful about double-faced and black-faced and political liars. Those cadres they have to be, they have to be careful about. So then the second thing that comes out of their speeches and everything is that suggestions are that they're also preparing for a military threat. Now, NTC Standing Committee has approved the discussion of a law to kind of speed up the approval and enactment of military laws in an event of emergency. So, People's Liberation Army deputies to the NPC and CPPC, they expressed views that passing of laws for the military could take undue, long time. So, when China is confronted with an emergency, so they kind of pass this law where enactment can be done very quickly in case of emergency. Now, China again in NPC sessions they have said that they are rapidly building the 6 aircraft carriers So this obviously means heightened PLA Navy presence not only in South China Sea. I know we are focusing on South China Sea today, but it also means that it's the threat is increased in the Indian Ocean also, which is of course of consequences to Taiwan, India, and of course Indian Ocean littoral states. So this is also a year that China has actually increased its defense budget to 7.2. It was 7 and 7, now it's 7.2. So two consecutive years they have increased their defense budgets. Sorry, two consecutive this thing sessions they have increased. Now there have been reports that have been coming in that China is also increasing its nuclear arsenal. So this is like in short, I have kind of summarized what's happening in China, especially the leadership. How they are thinking. What are the two threats that they have identified? There is domestic. They are afraid of a domestic disturbance, but they're also preparing for a military threat. Now you have to understand that Xi Jinping actually has a very short window, right? Because the economy is really down. Though you see that at the NPC, they have made promises, they have projected, and they have said the right things that they want to do this with the economy and everything, but the economy is really down. Now, Xi Jinping in his third term has a very short window. If the economy doesn't pick up, if the things don't increase, then because you're talking about this threat and everything and normalization, he definitely will externalize the threat. This short window is there. If it expires, this is what he's going to do. And when he's going to do, I feel there are two regions, Taiwan or India, which can uh, which have to worry immediately. you know and more than Taiwan, I know everybody talks about Taiwan. I feel there's a deterrent called the US. When it comes to India, you look at the way the Chinese have gone about it. Because I know the Chinese always in their Chinese language media, or even when they write in global times and all to portray to the world, they always say, because India is getting closer to the US, because India is doing this, because India is doing this, that is why we are doing, whatever happened, Galwan and everything. But the matter of fact is that they had prepared for all this before. These are excuses that they are putting in front of everyone, but they had already prepared for it. So, when it comes to normalization of threat or other things, I feel right now the projection is there, okay? But we also have to understand that this projection can turn into a reality if this window, the short window that Xi Jinping has, closes down. This is what he's that is when India and Taiwan really have to worry about.
Interesting. Namrata, I'm going to ask you two small follow ups before I actually move on to the next one. One, you said the kind of rhetoric about anti establishment
Hmm.
activities, wherein one PLA Air Force general was given a death sentence, and I'm sorry, I forget his name, but I remember the charge that was put against him. It was anti-political activity, and that's very interesting for a PLAAF, an Air Force general who probably doesn't have the kind of manpower which is needed to kind of do something. And secondly, you also mentioned global times and the writings which are coming out. You're a keen observer of Chinese writings which come out from the Chinese Communist Party. Uh, do you see the complete takeover of the so-called Ying Pais or the hawks within China of the Chinese hawks, which are supposed to be the aggressive ones, not the moderates. I forget how what YINGPI Ying Pai, if I'm correctly pronouncing it or not. Do you see a complete takeover of these guys within the rhetoric that is coming out of China? Because there were always two sides of the story within China, but today are we only seeing the aggressive part?
No, I don't agree with that because even when it comes to Taiwan, if you look at the writings, so it's not that all writings or all in China that there's a unanimous thing. See, the
Hmm.
unanimous part ends where all of them say that Taiwan is part of China and we have to recover Taiwan. That's common. But how to recover is, everyone doesn't agree on that. And here I'm not talking about maybe scholars, academicians, or think tank community. Even many PLA officers, retired PLA officers, have also warned that if China attacks Taiwan, if uses military force, and if it fails, it's going to be a disaster. And many of them have also come out and said that China doesn't have the capacity right now to actually take over Taiwan using military, because it has to be an amphibious attack. How many amphibious attacks have actually been successful in the history? uh, you know so everything comes down. So even when it comes to Taiwan, everyone agrees on one thing, but they don't agree whether they have to take over Taiwan by use of military force. And that's why I feel the aggression, of course, has increased. Like we have seen the recent President Tsai Ing-wen's visit to the US, we see that Chinese have upped their ante when it comes to the drills and everything. Even that we saw when Nancy Pelosi's visit, the how they kind of surrounded Taiwan and they did the military drills. But you also have to understand that. That's my personal thing, that they're going to increase the United Front Work Department activities. And especially with Taiwanese elections around the corner, I think they're using these drills also to kind of send the message to the Taiwanese people that it's actually DPP, because of DPP that and its actions that China is behaving in a certain way, right? Because we also have to put in the broader picture that former Taiwanese president Ma Ying-jeou actually visited China, right? And this so it's not about how do I say, just these military drills, this aggression, but China is also increasing the United Front Work Department activities to kind of make sure that at least DPP doesn't come to power again.
That's interesting to note that the Hawks are not fully in command as of now, and there are certain Hawks that actually got booted out of Global Times as well for being a bit too aggressive, if I may. So that's an interesting thing, which brings me to my next question. Xi Jinping would obviously want the aggressive Hawks to be completely in charge, because his perspective kind of gets met with whatever he wants to do with the neighbors, the broader world and stuff like that. But what happens when Xi Jinping knows that he's not fully in command of the entire setup? Does he feel isolated? Is he now in a position where people just tell him what he would want to know? Because what he would not want to know will anger him and bring out a reaction that they won't want to see.
That's, I think a lot of people are discussing this. And I think the discussion has started especially after the 20th Party Congress, when he kind of, the Politburo Standing Committee and even the CC, it's either his loyalist or his loyalist, right? But we can say, of course, he's surrounded by people who owe everything to him, right? You look at Saichi, you look at the other members of the Politburo Standing Committee, barring Wang Huning, who has worked with all three, Hu Jintao, Chiang Zemin, and now with Xi Jinping. So yes, that debate has already started. That people say that he's not going to listen, he's not going to hear any opposition, which is also correct, because if you look at like I spoke about the two establishments being a factor that can be used to purge even a senior member of the Communist Party of China. So that's something that they have been working on for a long time to create this personality cult around Xi Jinping, and also now we see it more. I mean, more than almost 5,000 articles are published on Xi Jinping every year, which is more than what was produced for even Mao, Hu Jintao, Tang Xiaoping or Chiang Zemin. So all that, and look at all the re-education campaigns that have started, the party, the party history campaigns and everything. And recently, they have also come up with how the party cadres will basically the rules and regulations for the party cadres for the next 5 years. That's another thing that has they have recently released, where again they have laid stress on two establishments and how important two establishments is, for the cadres to follow and there have been study sessions that have been started to study Xi Jinping's thought on socialism in the new era. So that's another thing that they have started. People's Daily, every day they're having articles on it. They are highlighting how different. So it's not only the government agencies, but also Costco, but also private companies that are indulging in study sessions, trying to study what Xi Jinping is saying. So that, of course, has become one factor. That is Xi Jinping and his men. So his men will do what Xi Jinping commands him to do, them to do. But there are also, if you analyze the Central Committee, which has 204 members, there are few members who are there. Of course, they're loyal to Xi Jinping, but they're there because of their capability also. Many are from the aerospace industry. Many are technocrats. So it's not that yes, his loyalists, but I there are few who are there because they are needed. The technology part, the technocrats, the aerospace industry. So there are people. The people that Xi Jinping lacks is people who have any experience in running the economy, and that's where I think one of the how to say the one for me, that's one of the worst things, because almost 60% of the CC members are from North. So they're not from the eastern provinces, which are the ones that generate most money, that the economy relies on, and they have no experience. There's hardly anyone in his standing committee that has experienced that kind of experience in economy. So we can say yes, he's been surrounded by his men, and who will, of course, they cannot actually talk anything that he doesn't like to hear, because, like I said, they owe everything to him. Many of them have been helicoptered right into the CC. You look at General Hervé, who was there when the Doklam crisis happened, and in the Western Theatre Command, he was there in the Eastern Theatre Command when he's the one who actually planned that military strike after Nancy Pelosi's visit. Now, he was not part of the 19th Central Committee, so he was helicoptered directly, not only in the 20th party, this 20th Central Committee, but he's also member of the Politburo. Okay, so there are many candidates who owe everything to Xi Jinping. So many of them, even if you look at Ting Shuexian, who's basically be projected as his successor, all of them owe their promotions to Xi Jinping. Many of them, most of them are basically like Xi Jinping, the sent down youths who were sent down to work in communes during cultural revolution, and most of them don't have their full-time degrees. They are all part-time degree students. Okay, and or many of them have worked either with Xi Jinping in Fujian or Zhejiang or Shanghai, and he has brought his people to Beijing. So many of them actually owe everything to Xi Jinping. So when you owe everything to someone, it's and with Xi Jinping's personality, I think it's going to get tougher for anyone to criticize him. And also with again, I'm repeating this point, but I think it's very important. These two establishments that has become one of the priorities, if I may say, to for the to judge any cadre's political commitment. So being committed to the party means you're committed to Xi Jinping. If you're not committed to Xi Jinping, the party has no, you don't have a place in the party.
Now that's a cult.
Yes, exactly.
So that's an interesting scenario that you've drawn out. Of course, there are going to be detractors in various different places. That's how it is. Of course, even the worst of the dictators had detractors and people working behind their backs. There's an interesting story when Stalin died. Uh, None of his allies wanted to go inside and open the door because they were scared if he was not dead, he would not be hung. So
Yes.
that tells you quite a bit with regards to where this is going to go. Because what I want to ask you is what we've seen as the new organization of the CPC, you know, the new organization, right,
Hmm.
of the CPC, of the CMC, of the this, of the that, every little, C abbreviated committee which is there, and I'm not mean the letter C, I mean the C
Hmm. True.
abbreviated community, where you are going to find that this situation will degrade going forward. Would you agree to something like that? Because this is not something that is going to remain at a constant, that these detractors and the people that are not very favorable to Xi Jinping thought and stuff like that will remain in the system. It they will be moved out, and of course a clearance will be done, because as per what he would look at it, he would want 100% compliance. If I know Xi Jinping 1% of what he is, would you agree to something like that?
Hmm. See, that's where when we talk about all these study campaigns and everything, and especially if you recall, after the 20th Party Congress, the Politburo Standing Committee, Xi Jinping and his Politburo Standing Committee, he took them all to Yan'an. Okay, so Yan'an is very important of course, you know that it is associated with the
Yeah.
revolution, the
Wow.
Red Revolution
Hmm.
that happened.
Hmm.
But it
Hmm.
is also a place where Mao started the purges.
Purges.
That is, people who were, of course, not in his favor were purged. So I personally feel that Xi Jinping is preparing to initiate another party rectification campaign, because all the signals are there. All the signals are there. I just spoke about the new regulations that have come in, which the cadres have to like follow. They have given a time period 2023 to 2027. So this is the period for which these new regulations have come. The coming in of two establishment, Xi
Yeah.
Jinping's tightening the grip on the security apparatus, which he didn't
Intern-
complete grip he didn't have, but now it's a
yeah.
complete
Internal
grip.
and external. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, internal and external. So all these factors to me seem that there is, like we spoke, there is resistance against him. There has to be. How is it possible that there will be no dissatisfaction? As soon as he took over, he shook everything in China, be it the army, be it the party, be it the security apparatus, everything. He went after everyone altogether. Of course, some part of it was to actually clean up, because after the Poshilai event, that's what the mandate was, that's what he was given over, that you have to clean the party. He went after everyone. In that, he not only, of course, eliminated the actually maybe corrupt people, because there was a lot of corruption in PLA and the party, because the way Poshilai was buying his position in the standing committee, that was the ultimate aim. There was, but he also took that as an excuse to kind of do away with his own opponents. And all the signs right now tell me that there's going to be another party rectification campaign, and this time it will not be the lower level cadres. It's going to be the middle level cadres, or maybe slightly up. So that's what he's going to clean up, and all signs to me indicate that something like this is coming.
I must say, Namrata, that is profound. I never thought about. I know that there would be. I mean, because he keeps talking about corruption being one of the biggest diseases, and he's mentioned that 2 3 times himself. A lot of
Yeah.
people other have mentioned that. Uh, I didn't think that he would go on to a campaign sort of a thing, because when you say campaign, it really means a drive, or a, like you in the black shirt get up, sort of a thing, like Saddam used to do at one time. Fair enough. Let's get on to the next thing I wanted to ask you. You also have. Let's just take a question about Taiwan. You've got the rhetoric for the Taiwan issue being raised up quite often by the West itself today, by the Americans. The combativeness by which Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister of Germany, gave that press conference with Chingang, uh, was a complete opposite to what Macron had said. But having said that, after this particular statement that the Chinese ambassador to France, uh, call it a
Yeah.
faux pas, call it a, uh, people
Politics,
say
yes.
he's a loose mouth. If he's a loose mouth, why is he still in the job? There's some reason for it. Uh, what's happening here? This just too much mixed messaging. You France best friends given guard of honor. Ursula von der Leyen is sent through the regular one plus VIP gate. Annalena Baerbock is called the most disgraceful guest. Uh,
Yeah.
it's just a lot of mixed messaging, and this guy goes around saying none of the Soviet Union states have. What's happening here? What's the message that China is wanting to send across the world?
See, when it comes to even Europe, we really have to acknowledge that when it comes to Europe also, when what all of us, in fact, were discussing when COVID happened and when this wolf warrior diplomacy was going on, like all of us actually said the same thing, and we said that this will result in at least the West, especially the US and Europe, the markets, their markets will not be that available to China. They will rethink about their policy to China. We all discussed that. And I think there was also a time when everybody was, of course, talking about this also, not only in India, but even in Europe, everywhere, US, and we have had many interactions. But look at the changes now also. For me, what is important is Macron's statement when he said that we don't have to be think like the US or align with the US when it comes to their policy on China. My problem is not that he visited. Of course, that is going to happen. In fact, we are going to have visits from China. We'll also go to China, even if we had a Galban Valley incident. The statement is very, to me, that was disturbing. What he said there, and there was a great backlash also. Look at the cartoons that were coming out from the US that he's kissing Xi Jinping's feet and everything. So see, that's because Europe is also under pressure when it comes to economy, right? They were heavily dependent. Look at Germany. Every second car is actually sold to a Chinese, right? So their economy was dependent on Chinese. Now, what is happening is because of the Ukraine war, the Europe is actually under a lot of pressure. Now, if you meet, when I met people from Europe who had come for Ricina and all, they said it's everything is very expensive. So their economy is also reeling. Now they have come under pressure from their own business communities. We need China market. We need China market. So that is why you see that all these visits and everything, something like this is coming around. Now, when you speak about China, how they are kind of reacting to all this, or maybe because you just spoke about the Chinese ambassador to France and other things, the signals that they are giving. So, you the signals are also there because if you look at the Chinese language media, they have been extremely critical when it comes to many things. In fact, the Chinese ambassador to France is getting a lot of claps, if I may say. That serves their domestic purpose also. Okay, and now the Chinese. I think the foreign ministry, MOFA, has released a statement saying that whatever he said, the Chinese ambassador to France, that's his personal opinion. That does not reflect what the Chinese state say. So, it's kind of carrot and stick. So we can do this also if you do this, okay. But on the world stage, we are trying to do this also. So like with India also they do, right? The informal visit with Modi and between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping is like it's going to change the course of India-China relations. But then comes Galwan Valley. So even when with Taiwan they do that carrot and stick policy. Youngsters they'll try to attract you, come here, you work here, economy is so good, and then you have the military threat. that's looming large over Taiwan. So I think it's become a new normal. So right before Chinese prime minister, sorry, president will come, or there is some high level state visit, they'll do an incursion at the border. And this, in this regard, I'll quote Mr. Ranade because I think he said that at a public platform, so I can say that he was told that right before the Depsang this thing, incursion, there was actually a discussion and a meeting. The Politburo met and discussed that if the incursion happens, what will be India's reaction? Will they cancel the state visit? They concluded that India will not do that. So they did the incursion. So every time when we have a state visit, we are actually here and they are here because they've already done the incursion. We're not at the same table only to talk. So it's a new normal. I think the ambassador made his point also, and then Mofa released a statement to say that's his individual. But they have made their point.
So normalization of aggression and
Yes.
normalization of exactly. I think you closed the discussion one question early, but I'm going to still stick you for it. But one thing that one can make out about China is that they are going to be in a terrible, terrible situation in terms of their debt, which is a situation that China has not faced earlier.
In
Uh,
case of
their debt,
debt.
yeah, this is a situation they've not faced earlier. Their BRI has kind of taken a, I mean, words are not enough. They are not able to produce the 4.5% so-called growth is a lot of people are not talking about. That's over last year when their growth was pretty much nothing. So
Hmm.
obviously they're going to show in this whole year they'll show great YOY growths because the previous year
Yeah.
they were locked in. Uh, that still doesn't feed the bulldog because at the end of it, if you look at the container movement index, the
Hmm.
containers are lying on Shanghai and very other ports empty. There's no demand at the moment. They are trying hard to boost up their internal consumption, which is not happening. They've not had the ecosystem for it. They've not had the mindset for it. This is a desperate situation for any country to be in, right? Which is not a very happy situation with a megalomaniac, if I may, dictator who is probably over ambitious about his own capacity as a country. How dangerous is that as a situation? Because here is a person who knows he's going down. Fair enough, fine. Let's take everybody down. That's a common man's perspective. An analyst perspective would be that they will try and externalize this issue. Your parting thoughts on this very dangerous comment?
See, that's what I said. I think briefly touched upon it also. Economy is bad. Now, there was an agreement, a silent agreement between the people and the party that you give up your freedom and we'll give you prosperity. So now, if you see that the economy is taking a hit, it's not just external trade but domestic consumption. Look at the way business shut down. Look at the way, and it's all interrelated. You know, the zero COVID policy, the desperation that was there in people, and we have seen the protests have happened. Why didn't they give a public funeral to Chiang Zemin? Because they were afraid that his protesters definitely, will come out in the open. So there are many things. That's why I said in the NPC session they have given a pointers on how they're going to improve economy and everything, and that's why I said the window is very short. If he is not able to improve the economy, he is definitely going to externalize it because he has to show something to his people that he has done something. Even a small win, little win, will of course be projected as a big win inside China, and that's going to secure his position. So that's my worry that if economy takes further hit, if also because we discussed in the Politburo Standing Committee, Politburo, and the CC, hardly one or two people who are experienced when it comes to dealing with the economy, and not at the level. If we talk about Li Keqiang, and if you talk about people when Tang Shopping opened up and everything, we don't have such economists as part of the Politburo Standing Committee, Politburo, and CC. So They have given indications that they are working on it, but again, will they be able to do it is my question. And if they are not able to do it, then definitely he will externalize, because then he's not left with no option.
No other
He has
option. Exactly.
So he has to justify his position, his staying as taking over the third time, and you never know, maybe for the fourth time after 5 years. So that's probably.
Imagine a generation of children, who are learning about their neighborhood in India, ask who's the prime minister, who's the president of China, Xi Jinping,
Xi
and his
Jinping.
children are going to learn the same name. So that's going to be a weird sort of a thing. I mean, it's quite an interesting scenario. Namrata, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and you brought out some very interesting things that I'd like to, you know, actually thank you for, because China is becoming, I just say it loosely, but it's becoming as interesting as Pakistan to me nowadays, because there's just so much coming out from there, and it's sometimes it's straight and simple, sometimes it's utter confusion, and you really wonder that this is the country that we touted as, who used to think 50 years, 60 years, 100 years ahead. They are on their feet right now and probably taking a lot of jhatka decisions to achieve what they want to achieve. Of course, the long term plan is there, and that's something that all of us know. How will they achieve it is a big question, and that's something that I will address with you probably in another session sometime else. Till then, Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Thank you.